threatening these good FBI agents? Why are you threatening defense intelligence officers from the Department of Defense if they stop these terrorists? And Ashcroft, who he knows personally, wouldn't meet with David Shippers. Washington Times, maybe you'll trust this trusted news source. Justice blocked FBI warrant on 2 of the other hijackers up there in Minnesota flight school. Look at that. Washington Times, Justice blocked FBI warrant. Wouldn't let them stop the terrorists. Well, no kidding. The government got triple the funding for anti-terrorism in 1995 after the Oklahoma City bombing with the 1996 Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act, which does nothing to stop terrorists and everything to take your rights away. And the legislation is coming up. And these are the FBI agents David Shippers was representing before the attack, who were threatened with jail if they stopped the CIA-funded and controlled al-Qaeda terrorists. Here's another one. Judicial Watch, the guys that went after Clinton, highly respected conservatives. The government is lying about the full extent and the source of the anthrax attacks. Judicial Watch. And they quote, this is from October 24th, the September 28th and 29th Wall Street Journal, that Bush gets millions of dollars a year from the bin Laden family, from the Carlyle Group, and the big defense contractor. And then Bush is actually on the bin Laden family payroll, both Bushes. And that George Bush, this was in the October 24th Associated Press, was on Cipro, the anthrax-fighting antibiotic, the day of September 11th, 3.5 weeks before anthrax even showed up. And now they're having to admit, it's been in Reuters, that it's a U.S. government strain, U.S. weapons grade, and it looks like somebody inside the U.S. government released it. That came out in Reuters. Somebody in the U.S. envoy to the UN blew the whistle incognito and released more secret documents that have now been released that are on Infowars.com. Just absolutely amazing. But now this kind of gets into conspiracy theory, and I really shouldn't cover this article, but you have a right to know. You know how they have the X-Files, and then after that, they had a couple of pilots for the Lone Gunman on Fox? And we'll show you a little clip of that as I talk about this. This is from the Fox website. This is a brief synopsis of what the show was about. 3 months before the September 11th attacks. Talk about mass conditioning you. In the show, a secret government group puts a computer on board the aircraft so that they hack into it and they try to fly a jumbo jet into the World Trade Center towers, which is exactly what the government knew the Islamics were planning in al-Qaeda back in 1995, but with actual hijackers. And we just read that article. So throwing it in your face 3 months before September 11th, Fox Television with the Lone Gunman. And that was Lone Gunman Pilot 1A-EB-79 pilot program, where the government is going to hijack a plane with a computer to fly it full of passengers into the World Trade Center tower to get martial law. God. And now I talk about it. Ooh, you heard that on the X-Files. See how they do that preconditioning? Very sophisticated. Here's MSNBC. Alleged hijackers may have trained at U.S. bases. The Pentagon has turned over military records of 5 men to the FBI. Well, it turns out that that was confirmed, that 3 men were trained by the Navy at the Pensacola Naval Air Station in a CIA operation. There you have it. Alleged hijackers may have trained at U.S. bases. And then, a few weeks later, that was September 15th, a few weeks later, it comes out in the Pensacola News Journal, highly respected publication. Senator seeks answers on hijackers' ties to Navy base. And in the article, it admits that they were trained at the base right before the terrorist attacks. There you have it. Pensacola News Journal. I mean, this is massive. Here is MSNBC in association with Newsweek. Access denied. FBI agents in Minneapolis weren't given approval to go after the terrorists. If 2 and 2 were put together, could hijackings have been stopped? Ask one investigator. No, let's just give the government triple the funding after the Oklahoma City bombing, which they engineered, and David Shippers is now even saying that, allowed the Islamic terrorists to attack. The Iraqis the government brought in that time, 3,500 of them, now in cells around this country. They wanted to blame that on American patsy to get the police state going against the American people. Again, access denied, ladies and gentlemen. FBI agents were not allowed to stop the terrorist, MSNBC. This is from the Sunday Mail, the third largest mainstream newspaper in England. Bin Laden family linked to Bush in Arbusto Oil, Harkin Energy, Carlyle Group, right up into 2001. Vacationing with the Bin Laden family. Boy, they had this set up a long time ago. Oh, but I guess the former CIA director, George Bush, the blue blood from Kennebunkport, Maine, I guess he wouldn't think anything up like this, would he? That's the Mail, the Sunday Mail, the big newspaper over in England. And again, go read all this at Infowars.com. Here's the Miami Herald. And it says Bin Laden tipped his hand. And it says law enforcement officials were not allowed to stop the terrorist. The FBI knew that Bin Laden associates were taking flying lessons at flight schools around the U.S. and were planning to hijack him and fly him into buildings. French authorities warned them of the actual areas to be attacked, the time that it was going to be attacked, but nothing is going to be done. And this is a Miami Herald posting. It's actually from Knight Ridder News Service. Because of the internet, newspapers will post other people's stories. It's a little confusing. But it's all in the government prior knowledge section of Infowars.com. Oh, here's an interesting one from the BBC. Bush took FBI agents off the Bin Laden family trail. And again, I suggest you read this whole article. Don't believe me, just go read it. And I actually interviewed the BBC reporter. I actually interviewed David Shippers, and all that is coming out in a more in-depth film to be released in early 2002. It just takes too much time to produce a high production value documentary. This is just a special intelligence report for you with all the documentation. Please get it out to police, sheriffs, military people, opinion makers. They're not bad, but they're using this horrible terrorist attack to corral them into more control. We'll get to the details of that a little bit later. Bush took FBI agents off the Bin Laden family trail. London, America was itself to blame for the events of September 11th because the U.S. administration was using kid gloves and tracking down Osama bin Laden and other fanatics linked to Saudi Arabia. A special BBC investigation has reported in a damning indictment of the two President Bushes and American foreign policy. Excuse me. The report, which the BBC aired based on a secret FBI document, now made public, by the way, numbered 199I WF2I 3589 and emanating out of the FBI's Washington field office of the American establishment and connections between the CIA and Saudi Arabia and the Bushmen and the Bin Ladens may have been the real cause of the deaths of thousands of the World Trade Center attacks. BBC. And it just goes on and on. They're all in business together. Bush funded the terrorists. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Bush took FBI agents off the Bin Laden family trail. 2 months. 2 months before. 2 months, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable. Think about that. Think about that out there. Here's Gregory Palast, who, again, I interviewed with this even more in-depth reporting from the BBC. FBI and U.S. spy agents say Bush spiked Bin Laden probe right before September 11th and gets into more detail. By the way, you know where this secret document came from and why the Bush crime family and the CIA and their little puppet Bill Clinton, those guys are all in bed together? You know why the big CFR takeover isn't going to work? You know why? Because there's good FBI agents and good people in defense intelligence and many other agencies, and more documents are getting released by the day, and they're panicking. You can see it on their faces. Bush telling us to shut up. Ashcroft implying we're terrorists if we expose this. No, you're the terrorist. You're the phony conservative, Ashcroft. We're the real conservatives that care about this country. FBI and U.S. spy agents say Bush spiked bin Laden probes before September 11th. Because remember, before September 11th, the FBI inside the channels tried to stop the terrorists, and they're about to attack. Here's the plans. Here's the hijackers. Why is the federal government funding them? Why are you training them at U.S. military bases? We've intercepted the phone calls. We've got the records. Bush threatened to have them arrested. FBI agents, Defense Intelligence. And so what did they do? I've actually talked to some of these FBI agents and Defense Intelligence in person. I just can't reveal their names, obviously. Lawsuits are forthcoming through David Shippers, former impeachment lawyer that went against Clinton. Okay? This is such incredible magnitude. How does it get any more insane? Well, before, they didn't release secret documents. Now the FBI and Defense Intelligence are leaking secret documents to the foreign press. They leaked these documents to the U.S. government. They leaked these documents